Hello everybody, welcome to another video build guide. This one specifically is one of my personal favorites of all time, and that's for Elebuzzsaw. Spectral Throw has been a fan favorite and feels really fun to play. I've revamped and completely redone the build multiple times, and this latest iteration probably feels one of the best personally. People like to talk about Spectral Throw, saying it needs a buff. It hasn't been good for a while. Like, it's fun to play, but it's not meta. It's not really true at all. The build is great. It's always felt great. If you build and put a little bit into it, there's a lot of different interactions that you can do. People don't see it pop up on the POB for that like top meta like 10%, and it just oh, it's 0.1%. It must be dead and nobody can use it. I'm going to go over a quick guide here and show you guys all the reasons of why the build actually feels great to play. And it's super fun and engaging. So the first thing I want to bring up before we do a little map showcase here so you can get an idea of how the build plays is to talk about the skill a little bit itself. Basically, if you've never played it, Spectral Throw, it basically casts a little spectral version of your weapon, which is kind of cool. You get a bunch of projectiles, everything shoots out. The hitboxes are much larger than it actually looks on that. And there's different ways you can build it, like deck stacking is a popular version right now, which this is not. This is just a tri-elemental build, which is why it's called Elebuzzsaw, basically. The buzzsaw part comes from the Spectral Throw MTXs that you can get. There is a handful of them, and they are all super dope, if you ask me. This is probably the most common, and it turns your things into little tiny buzzsaws, basically, which is why people call it Elebuzzsaw for the build. It shoots out, and they kind of spread, like into a V shape, which is great for clear. Nothing's reduced for single target or anything like that. And then if you want, you can obviously like spin around if you have like a ritual or something like to clear. Like it's very good for single target and it's very good for clear. The other two MTXs I'll showcase real quick because they're also pretty cool. And shoots little like Reaper sights out, which is super fun. The sound is actually pretty cool too. They each got their own little sound effect that plays. This one throws me off a little bit. It looks awesome, but it turns the blade sideways, kind of like the initial no MTX. And then like the hitbox is like there'll be a mob between two of those things, and you'll think it's not hitting like in that gap there, and it hits like the whole thing. So that one kind of throws me off a little bit, but it's also super fun to play with. I'm just going to showcase this one for the little map here. One little thing I want to talk about before we start is this league specifically. It's very hard when I do a build guide and have the current things of the league that you can do. This league has been insane for multiple reasons. It brought a lot of power creep into the build. Charms are huge and disgusting, and a lot of power creep. I try to keep league-specific mechanics out of my builds and my build guides, because usually they're not going to go core. So to showcase a build or something very strongly with a bunch of added mechanics or something, and then all the next leagues is just gone. But this has been so fun that I feel like I have to like showcase it a little bit with the current charms. That which was taken is huge, ridiculous amount of damage. Luckily, most of the stuff is just more DPS, right? So the build works generally the same exact. You just have to switch a few passives, you won't get the charms, so on and so forth, and you'll obviously lose a bit more DPS if none of this goes core, which I highly doubt it will. Another one I want to talk about quick are the Spectres. I mean, if you haven't done the league or haven't seen, or you have no idea like why Affliction, like why are you running Spectres on an attack build? Like, are you dumb? Spectres are so overpowered and good in this league. They usually have some kind of auras and stuff attached to them. This little totem looking dude right here gives me free wrath, which let me put anger into the build, which is a whole extra damage aura, so it's a huge amount. Plus it makes your lightning damage lucky, which means every time you hit with your lightning damage on a weapon or whatever, it basically rolls it twice and takes the highest damage roll, which is a huge DPS. Like, So anybody that's done lightning damage, it has a very, very, very low minimum and a very high maximum usually. So now it changes that, and you get basically 2 chances to get a higher roll of lightning every single time you attack, basically. It's super strong. This little warlord guy that keeps screaming off to the side here basically gives me vitality aura. He gives a few endurance charges, and he kind of helps my other guy like live a little bit here. So again, I'm going to showcase with the specters and the build as it is, because there's probably still at least a month or two to this league, and it is so fun to play. I'm also going to probably showcase not the league mechanic. So the league mechanic drops a bunch of wisps that up your magic find, the currency items you get, the quantity and stuff. But on the flip side, it makes monsters much, 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 much stronger. They get a lot more damage reduction, they have a lot more life, they have a lot, and this character and this build can take care of it. It was fine, it wasn't an issue, all the way up to like 8-9k wisps. But again, for the sake of the video, hopefully going for many leagues, many years, I don't want to necessarily show how it plays in a juiced up league mechanic. So, I did roll a map here, just a random, literally elk. Quant rarity pack size, 20 qualities. So now this map rolled with Enfeeble, extra monster life, extra crit, and extra damage. So that's a pretty decent map, I would say. Scarabs, I'm just gonna throw in like Ambush, Divination, Harvey, Cardo, and now I'll just add on some more Ambush. I love my double strong boxes. We can do an Elva if you want, just to add some more stuff to it, just to give an idea. And I'll give you guys a quick showcase of the video and how it plays. I'll go over a couple of the mechanics as I go here. The best thing with gearing, which I will touch about later, is with Mage Blood and a proper roll of a reduced mana cost of skills, you have a 0 mana cost. It's in the written guide, and I'll go over it a bit more later, but you have to have the 2 non-channeling minus mana costs on your rings and have a perfect 25% roll. You also have to put the life mana catalyst on to turn it from -7 to -8, and then it completely negates the mana cost, which means I can sit here for all eternity and just gas, which feels great for any attack-based build. Now, there's other things you can do. You don't need a Mage Blood. You don't need, like optimal gearing. You can get some kind of mana leech. You can get another claw, a Gemini claw or something that gives, like, mana on hit along with life on hit. There's a lot of other things you can do, but just having 0 mana cost does feel the best in the end. I give you an idea here, too. Most of this stuff here, you're just gonna click a couple times and clear. You're not gonna like sit here and mash down and like try. This is just proc shield, so that's actually a good example. You don't have to like sit here and mash down to kill the guys. Usually, you can just zip through this. One or 2 clicks for most things and just travel with your projectiles is usually fine. And clears the map. If you get anything that resurrects, proc shields, anything like that, you can, like, there's nothing to stop you from sitting back here and just launching projectiles. Obviously, with all the projectiles you get, which we'll go over here in a second, you can definitely block a lot of stuff on your screen, which is a small downside to the build. Obviously, people kind of like a little bit of visual clarity. Well, having 0 visual clarity is not, not the greatest for a build, but everything dies, so it feels great, so it doesn't really matter. The build is pretty tanky overall. You have a high evasion, high spell suppress. You get a bit of block from your shield that you roll. And then the biggest thing, which you'll see as it goes on, if I take any sort of damage or anything here, is the life gain on hit on the claw is absolutely ridiculous. Basically, if you do not get one shot, you can leech back all of your life in like a fraction of a second. So even if you drop down to like half life, quarter life, anything like that, as long as you're actively hitting and killing guys, which is hard again, and most of the guys are just dead. But as long as you're actively hitting guys, you're going to regenerate your hit points and stuff. With just from the implicit on the claw, that gives you the life per enemy hit, if we attack really fast. So it's super safe. Again, you can sit back. So one of the mechanics is, so we do all 3 Ellie damages, right? Right now, from Anger, from Herald Device, from the Ellie rolls on the Claw, from like all the other stuff, we do all the elemental damages, which means we get all of the ailments that we inflict on the enemies. So they're ignited, they're shocked, they're chilled or frozen. There's a lot of times you'll be hitting packs or a boss or anything like that, and it'll just stop. It'll be frozen because you hit it so many times in so many seconds, which is super good for defenses as well, and obviously feels good to play with cold explosions from Herald Vice and everything else. A Trinity support gem, if you've never used it. Let me make sure this is all dead and clear real quick before I pull it up. Is the first time I've actually ever used Trinity gem myself. It is this one right here. So basically, every time you hit with an elemental damage type, it gives you resonance, which is these. No, they're gone now. If I can get the icon back. This little circle up in the corner here. And it shows what your resonance are of each of the other, the other elements. Basically, so if you hit with lightning damage, it gives you resonance of fire and cold. If you hit with cold, it gives fire, lightning, so on and so forth. So basically, you have to do at least 2 elemental damage types, and it will give you full resonances of all the other things, which is also super good. This shrine actually does nothing to me because I'm already crit capped. But you can see it's up. As long as you're hitting guys, it's up literally all the time, and it's a huge DPS upgrade. It feels great for gem itself. Let's see what else is on my list here. Go do that elbow before I forget. The build is pretty fast. Now again, I have a Mage Blood. You do not need a Mage Blood to play this build. I started playing this build literally at level 1 start. I ran all the way through the campaign and went all the way through the leveling, all the way through the maps, all the like you definitely do not need a Mage Blood to play or complete this build. As long as you handle your mana cost issue and a couple other things, it's fine. For speed, I don't even use a Quicksilver. There's no Quicksilver or movement speed roll on this between having Whirling Blades, which goes pretty fast in most maps, most situations, and then having just Frenzy charges and Power charges that are up all the time. At least when I'm hitting. I don't really need the increased movement speed. I'd rather get flasks that have something else attached to it. As you can see through this, there's no issues. I don't want to say the build is immortal. It's not immortal by any means. Like, there's definitely deaths. This league specifically, if you really wisp juice maps up, it can get pretty crazy. But overall, the build just feels absolutely amazing to play. It's one of my favorites by a very long shot. It's pretty safe. It's pretty tanky. Now, you saw my life dip a little bit there, probably from ball lightning that this guy does or something like that. I do want to point out the optimal distance now, because the build does have far shot. So once we get to the boss, I'll slow it down a bit and showcase that real quick too. And finish up this last Elva. The only downside to this build at all, for me, while playing hitting mobs, is proc shields. Proc shields are just kind of annoying. You have to get under them to actually damage, and obviously since you're relying on your life gain on hit and stuff too, if all of a sudden you hit a bunch like the Sextant that adds a bunch of guys that have proc shields, you basically stop life gaining on hit because you're not actually hitting them. So that's pretty much it for the whole map now. Again, builds pretty fast, so we can kind of zip through. 2 Ickers, bunch of stupid stuff. I like clicking chests just because I'm a weirdo. Now, so we have our boss in here, okay? We have none of our charges up at all. You'll see how fast the boss dies once we get our charges like ramped up. But for far shot, you want a projectile travel distance of about 60, which is about from where I'm standing right here to this wall. So it's honestly, it's not very far. You can totally go further. The projectiles go like almost to the edge of the screen completely, or past if you do sideways, you go diagonal. But maximum damage is this far or further. Now, if you don't use far shot and you get real close and you get right on top of the guy, it doesn't really matter. It's not like you lose half your DPS or anything like that. There's a couple things on the jewels that give you a little extra like projectile damage if you're nearby, and that helps offset the damage a little bit if you're too far away. But basically on a boss or on big rares or whatever you want, you're going to throw it on your Ancestral Protector Totem here just to give you the extra cast speed and make sure your Blood Rage is up. And then we do have Berserk. We'll go into that a smidge later, but we get Rage on hit with attacks. So once you're going through maps, now I have 0 because I've obviously stopped to talk. But just to showcase, lost dead. And that would have actually went way faster if I had all of my charges up, which I didn't because I stopped. But normally you'll go through, you'll be killing guys, you'll have max charges, and then you'll pop at this thing. You'll throw the totem and dead, like before he can even look at you, pretty much. It's a very good build. That's just a little example now of, I don't even have any scrolls on. Oops. That's just a little gameplay showcase of how the build plays. I'm gonna re-pop back into it. Now, we're gonna go over a few things just in the hideouts. It's great for bossing. It's great for Ubers. Some of the things are absolutely ridiculous, like invitations. So if you want to do like the Elder Slayers, if you want to do a normal Eaters, if you want to do like, it's so safe and taken with the life gain on hit and all the other aspects of it. You literally just like go into an invitation, you sit like in the middle and just blast the guys and they're dead. Just give a quick little showcase here. We have, let me empty my inventory real quick and dump all this out. Now, we have mechanics we went over mostly now. I'm going to go over one last thing, and then I'm going to start going over the gear. We have, how do you get the projectiles, right? So I have 6 projectiles on my character right now. The gem gives you 1. You only get 1 projectile. So the way we get extra projectiles is this node right here. Gives us the second. You pick this up almost right away when you're leveling. You literally start here, you go up, and you go get this. You can use a lesser multiple projectiles when you're leveling, and you basically run around with like 4 projectiles while leveling up until you get the other ones. As a Deadeye, this build used to be played as a Raider for the longest time. Now it is a Deadeye. You get 2 additional projectiles from the Ascendancy point, which brings you, so you get 1 from the gem, you get 1 from this node right here, multi-shot, then you get 2 from here, which brings it up to 4. So as you can see, we have 6. We get our last 2 from these large cluster jewels right here. You're looking for Fan of Blades, which gives 1 additional... I thought it actually said it somewhere on here, but... anyway, it's Fan of Blades. It gives 1 extra projectile, and I thought it did something else. I think we can see it on POV. I mean, I guess I could hover over there, right? So it gives an extra projectile while wielding a claw or dagger, and projectile attack damage with claws or daggers. So it's an awesome node. They really aren't super expensive. And then the other ones are just some damage and attack speed. So with those, we get 1 from the jewel, 1 from the jewel, 1 from the skill, 2 from the ascendancy. It gives us 6 projectiles. Now, Spectral Throw has some really weird mechanics that I won't go into, but every cast, not every projectile, every cast, so 6 projectiles, a mob can be hit every 0.3 seconds. So basically, you can get like 3 1/3 attacks per wave. So each one of these is going to be different. Obviously, when they return, they're the same. Like, so if you get like 20 projectiles and you go up to a boss, like a lot of them aren't even going to hit. It's not going to do anything. It's not whatever. Like, you don't have to have all of the projectiles hit anyway. If you cast a bunch with Spectral Throw and then you move to the side, they kind of boomerang like to where you are. So if you get all the projectiles to go through the guides, they can only be hit so many times anyway. But most of that doesn't really matter because you're already doing so many damage and hitting with so many projectiles that it's just mainly it's a clear thing. So the more projectiles you get, the easier it is to race through a map and clear and have the entire screen covered in projectiles. Whereas if you only have like 1 or 2 projectiles, it's going to be much harder to clear. Gear-wise, I'm going to go over this. Now, don't forget, this character is the absolute end game, like min-max type stuff. You do not need anything close to that gear. I just pushed it. The league was very, very rewarding in the league mechanic. As you can see, piles of money. It was very easy to add up like a bunch of currency and pour currency into things. We'll start with the weapon. It's always been my favorite. I love claws. Here's the old claw that I used. So this is the end game claw. With the fracture, a T1 LE roll, and the essence, and like, how should it's very progressive crafting, and you can't really mess up the thing. I will definitely get into the crafting a little bit more, a little bit later in its own little section in the video guide. But this is the very end game. You do not need something like this. Something like this, minus the corrupt. I just did it for 30 quality because I was lazy. You basically roll an essence. Actually, I'll hold off on that one too until later on, just so I keep all the crafting in the same section. But for example, this claw cost me about 200 divs to make. This claw costs like 8 to 10. It's not very expensive. It's got a dead mod on it. It's got a T2 like lightning roll. Like, I'll go over that later. But basically, you want a dual LE damage claw for however you do it. You want attack speed, and you want crit, and then you want to be able to put the attacks penetrate LE resistances, which is much, much better than a third roll, a third LE roll. So you basically want 2 damage mods, the penetration, crit, and attack speed. Blizzard Crown is pretty straightforward here. It just gives a whole bunch of extra cold damage, which turns out really good for attack builds. We get max spell suppress, so we do need a couple rolls, I think, on the helmet, on the boots. Gloves don't even have it, and then we do get some nodes on the tree. It gives max suppress. One of the things we do on the build here is we actually get +1 max power charges a couple places. We get 1 on the helm, we get 1 on the shield, we have 3 by default, and then we have this max power charge here, and then on our amulet we anoint overcharge, which gives this. So we get 7 power charges, which helps with the crit and the crit chance to build that up. And then since we're running Badge of the Brotherhood, that 7 power charges also gives us 7 frenzy charges. So basically, when we're mapping and we're hitting things, we get 7 power, 7 frenzy charges all the time. And with the Forbidden Flesh Flame Jewels added, we actually get, I'll show on the POB real quick, we actually get Avatar of the Slaughter, which is the Raider node that gives extra movement speed, attack damage, and attack speed, and evasion per frenzy charge. So, back to in-game, we have the helmet, which is pretty basic, life, spell suppress, and we get +1 max power charge. You don't need to awaken things together. You can get something super crazy if you want, like you can get reservation efficiency and max power charge and slam them together, but you really want a suppress roll, so you'd have to probably slam together a bunch of them. Just buying one with like life, power charge, suppress was not really hard at all. The chest looks pretty crazy. It's really not. It's just, I just bought it straight out. I suggest that you buy it straight out instead of crafting it. You basically want power charge and crit strike. And then the attacks have flat percent crit strike. Additional curse comes basically with it. It's a very easy mod to hit. So I just bought the chest straight up. I think it was like 25 divs or something like that, like weeks and weeks and weeks ago. It basically all comes together. The unveiled mod for having avoid Ellie ailments is great. I wasn't even going to plan around that to begin with, and I was going to get an extra roll on my shield or something to become ailment immune. I decided, since it was easy enough to look for or search on the chest, because there's only a couple veiled mods that you can get for the people that are crafting them and doing them, I just bought it straight up like this, and it definitely helped me hit my immune to Ellie ailments completely. You get a little bit from the tree, you get a little bit from the boot implicit roll, you get this, and then boom, you don't have to worry about any elements at all. You don't have to run Purity of Elements, you don't have to do any of that. So you have the claw, the helmet, the body armor. The shield is another one I'll go into more on crafting, like later on. It's far from godly. It's got a big fat life roll. And then a hybrid life. It's got the avoid Ellie elements, which is all I was going. You need, like, that's how you get the rest of your cap. And then it's got a little flat cold lightning and double damage. I'll go over the crafting this and the claw a bit later on. The gloves are super basic easy. You get the temple mod with the cold res and the increased damage with hits against chilled enemies. Attack speed would actually probably be best in slot here. I love attack speed on this character, especially with 0 mana cost. It feels great. The faster you attack, the more enemies you hit, the more you life lead. Like, the faster your attack speed, the better you are. There's also why we use Blood Rage down here. I'm actually going to pop it off real quick, just to show the difference real quick. So this is just normal. No charges, no frenzy charges, no nothing. And that's still a lot of attacks per second. We throw down our totem and hit Blood Rage. And look how much faster it is already. And then on top of the charges that we get, we have a crazy amount of attack speed. Even this attack time is point with the totem and Blood Rage, we're at 0.11 attacks per second, which is pretty crazy. And that's without any of the frenzy charges. Anyway, we get Aspect of the Spider, which you could throw on a ring, a helmet, a shield, like basically wherever it fits. A little bit of life. Mage Blood, obviously, which prices were all over this league. But it basically let me throw some plat. This is literally just for the Magicka League. This class does nothing else. It's literally just a whole bunch of rarity, which is great for this league, but most leagues, it's not even going to matter. We got an Amethyst Flask to cap our Chaos Res and the reduced mana cost, which, again, gives us 0 mana cost on this. We got a nice attack speed roll and Onslaught from the Flask, which now the increased effect applies to the Onslaught effect as well. And then we have Evasion with extra additional Ellie resistances, which just eases up the res that we need on our other gears so we can concentrate on other things. So honestly, they're not even super crazy. If you don't have Mage Blood, like, I could probably run another map and pull off my Mage Blood completely, or all the flasks, and it probably won't even change much. Obviously, my resistances and stuff won't be capped and stuff, but it's very easy to play without Mage Blood. It's just more fun to play with Mage Blood. Our rings, I always save jewelry for the last. One thing I do want to throw out here is one of the biggest issues with this build. You need pretty high intelligence and pretty high strength. As being a pure dex base, we are missing a lot of int and a lot of strength. Now, League beginning, that could be a bit of an issue. I think the biggest one is actually Steel Skin. Yeah, we need 155 strength for Steel Skin. And for int, between Wrath and a couple of the other things, obviously Wraith Spectre, which in future leagues you probably won't even use. The go-to here is you need to have a big, fat int roll and strength roll somewhere, and then you might even need a bit besides that. For me, I got strength on the boots. Chaos Res, which is to help it get capped, a little bit of Spell Suppress. Honestly, boots like this are not very expensive. I rolled the implicits myself, which are very easy to do. I basically just looked for strength, Chaos Res, Spell Suppress, movement speed, and it's really not that bad. I think it was literally 5-6 divs. And then on one of my rings, I get a big fat intro. And that definitely helps kind of alleviate the other things. I also go for Ellie weakness on hits, which gives me my second curse. We use Sniper's Mark for the big damage for bosses and things like that, along with Mark on hit support. So basically, Sniper's Mark is going to go off on all the rares and stuff like that. But Ellie weakness on hit also applies to all the mobs, all the monsters all the time. And since we have the additional curse on our chest, we can have both Sniper's Mark and Ellie weakness on all the time. The rest is just kind of damage, life. You have to finish up your resistances if you need them. I always work on jewelry last. This one's just crit multi, LE damage with attacks, life. Now I was going to buy a new super GG endgame ring, like an opal ring with, you know, a little bit more to it. Just didn't even matter at that point, so I just didn't bother. And that pretty much goes over all of the gear here. Trinket doesn't really matter. I'm going to go over the gems real quick, and then I'm going to talk about the crafting of them. So we have, for our gems, we just have our normal whirling blades, faster attacks. Steel skin is awesome to put on your left click, because no matter what, no matter how much you move around, you're always left clicking to move, pick up loot, whatever. Steel skin goes off, it gives us a nice little bubble. It gives us immunity to bleeding, and it's basically an extra 2200 damage that, you know, is taken from the bubble before. And it goes off, like, fairly often. I think it's got about a 3-second downtime, 2.7-second cooldown time, so it definitely helps. Whirling blades, faster attacks is obviously just to get around. Some people like whirling blades, some people don't. The faster your attack speeds up, the faster you whirling blades. It's really good in open areas. It's not very good if you're trying to go over like cliffs and walls and stuff like that, but you go fast enough, so it's not too bad to, even if you have to take the long way around, it's fine. You can totally switch that with a flame dash or work a flame dash into the build if you want. Frost blink, whatever, just to get over ledges or whatever. Our main setup, I guess we should go over, is Spectral Throw, added cold, obviously the awakened versions once you get there, added lightning, LE damage with attack supports, Trinity, and Nightblade. Nightblade is like an elusive specific, so once you get elusive too, the movement speed on your character goes flying. Between the elusive effect, the Badge of the Brotherhood elusive effect, like when you actually go into a map or a mob, let me just go to Blood Aqueducts here real quick, and you hit a mob, the elusive effect is like just what, like 224% or something, which gives a ton of movement speed and increased chance to avoid damage. So elusive is really big on the build. Add everything together, and it's very versatile. So we have, that's our main 6-link setup. The only thing I want to talk about here, a little side note or a side warning. This build specifically, which I forgot to mention earlier, can run all map mods. All of them. Boom. Straight across the board. There's no issues. There's no problems. There's no, oh, well, it can run this one, but this one feels bad. Or no regen or less recovery. You have to put on a mana flask or switch red. Like there's none of that. Because you get your life gain on hit and you have 0 mana cost, no regen doesn't matter. Less recovery doesn't matter. Like none of that stuff matters at all. The only exception to this I want to throw out, be very careful of this, you do almost 100% elemental damage with this build. If you look at your tooltip, it's mostly cold and lightning. However, your claw itself has a base physical damage roll on it. It's only 25 to 65, but when your character gets really juiced up and really geared, and does a lot of damage and crits and stuff, that physical damage still does a few hundred. This says 190 to 493, and that's without max crit and all that stuff. So if you go into a map that has like 22% Fizz Reflect on it, you'll watch your life be ping-ponging back and then you'll be dead. Now I have a charm. You can work in a couple other things. I have a charm on here that makes damage from my critical strikes cannot be reflected. We're already immune to LE Reflect from awakened LE damage with attacks, so you don't have to worry about your main. But if you get Fizz Reflect again, it can kill you unless you have something else that prevents it. Sometimes I think in the past I did like a Sybil's ring and I put it on to get the reduced reflect on the ring. You can switch your minor Pantheon if you roll a Fizz Reflect map specifically and you want to run it and you don't want to reroll the map. There is one of these that gives the Eagle, wherever it is. I even know I haven't used it in so long. Oh, right here. You and your minions take 50% reduced reflected damage. So if you like combine that with like a Sybil's ring or something like that and swap it out, like it's fine. I would just reroll the map, or again, if there's charms or something else, just make sure that you don't kill yourself from physical reflect because of that physical roll on the claw. Besides for that, all map mods are fine, and since I have a charm that prevents reflected damage from crits, I never have to worry about it, and I never kill myself. What else? Gems. Berserk we use. Berserk is great. It's a huge increase, more movement speed, more attack speed, less damage taken. Pretty much I only use it for bosses because it's extra funny. Every time you hit, you can get rage, like every 1.1 seconds, as long as you're ripping through a map and you're killing guys. It's pretty easy to maintain like 30 to 40 rage, depending on how many mobs and stuff are on the map. You pop into the boss room and you usually have still 35, 40 rage, and then you just pop Berserk and it lasts, I don't know, 8 seconds, 10 seconds, 12 seconds, something like that, and it just gives even more damage and more attack speed, and the boss just falls over. Ancestral Protector for the tome for the extra attack speed, and then Blood Rage, which I cast every map. The Warlord gives Vitality Aura, so if you're not life gaining on hit and you're not hitting, you don't even lose. You get enough regen just from the Vitality that he's running to literally stay at full life, so it doesn't matter. If next league all the Spectres and all the stuff are gone and you turn on Blood Rage, you will degen life slowly, which is not an issue while you're attacking and killing stuff, but if you go into like a dead period or you're reading something on your other monitor or whatever, you will slowly lose life all the way. I have Blood Rage in my shield, so I can just weapon swap, and then it'll turn it off. You just have to be careful all your auras and stuff are still on if you flop, depending on what it is. But if you have Blood Rage on, I can just hit X and swap real quick, which I can't now because... Oh, I can. Actually, sometimes when you're in a map, it says there's no other thing to swap to because I have nothing on my offhand right now. But basically, if you have Blood Rage on and you're taking damage and it's like a no regen map or something, you're like, oh shit, like when my life keeps going down, you can either pop the gem out or you can just weapon swap and it goes off and then weapon swap back and you don't have to worry about it. This is just for auras. We have it in Lightning 4. We have Herald of Ice. We have Grace. And now we're using Anger just because... Oh, I killed my things here. That's the only thing you have to be careful when you swap and stuff, and like your Wraith Spectre gem goes like down and it took my helmet off, right? Like, so the helmet didn't have enough int, so it killed that slot, which means it killed my Spectre, basically. But now my two Spectres are sitting on the ground like chumps. So let me res them again real quick before I forget. So as of right now, this guy gives me Wrath, and the auras are very, very powerful. So right now, because he gives me Wrath, I was able to put Anger on. In future leagues, when the Spectres and stuff will be gone, you will not use Anger, and you will use Wrath because it's the better gem. But as of right now, since it gives me Wrath, I'm using Anger, Grace, and Herald of Ice, along with an Enlighten. It eats up most of the mana. Aspect of the Spider is on there as well, and that literally takes me down to literally 0 mana. It's very hard to balance perfectly for the reservation efficiency. You have to make sure you have every single mana, every single you can, and it still takes like 100% of your mana. So getting an extra reservation efficiency roll on your helmet or something would help alleviate that a little bit. It's in the video guide, but I don't think I get a ton. Like you pick up charisma down here. There is one I want to point out. I always forget in the POB when I did it. There is one tiny little reservation efficiency node that you can pick up thanks to your Thread of Hope. And that is where I guarantee I'll get that one a lot. People will be like, oh, I did it and I matched it up, but I'm still like 50 mana short or whatever, and I got all the reservation, like I don't see where it comes from. It's going to be this tiny little node right here, reservation efficiency 8%. This was probably the most expensive piece on the build, besides the claw that I made myself, was the Thread of Hope, massive. Now it's actually down some, but way earlier in the league, I paid almost 100 divs just for this jewel. The problem is this jewel gives you access to 1, 2, get this out of the way, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Did I count these ones? 10, 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 passive points that you pick up, which is huge for a Thread of Hope, and all of them are super good. We also do get an extra 4% life on kill on top of the life gained on hit. So that was probably the biggest item piece, or the most expensive for the build. We have Sniper's Mark with our mark on hit, which means we don't have to worry about Sniper's Mark at all. It just goes off on rares, it goes off on bosses. You just attack like normal, don't worry about it. I do have a Cast on Death Portal. Again, even though this guy's pretty tanky and did not die a whole lot, I kind of had a couple extra slots that I said, sure, I'm just going to put Cast on Death Portal on in case I get died. I don't have to go running back through a map or anything like that. That pretty much sums it up for the gems. The flask, everything else. Now again, this build is pushed a lot to the min-max, but is definitely not needed. Any other jewels, so that which was taken, this is disgusting. It is an absolute ridiculous amount of power creep in builds. You can get any mods that you can get on charms thrown randomly on these jewels, and these jewels are just going up in price and up in price and up in price. Like, there's literally multiple mirrors for some of the better end play. That which were taken. I'm assuming this is not going to be in the game in the future, but as of right now, this one actually didn't cost me a super big amount, but it's just more damage, basically. So, cluster jewels are all super basic. The mediums are super easy to roll. There's 2 projectile ones, and then there's two crit ones down here. We have our Forbidden Flesh or Forbidden Flame. We have Watcher's Eye somewhere. This is just for Corrupted Blood, cannot be inflicted on you, because that will definitely kill you. And I think that's the only other case of mana reservation efficiency that I have on the tree is on this jewel, 3%. And that's what allows me to get 0. I do have a Thread of Hope. I do have a Watcher's Eye somewhere. Right here. So this, I just got the damage pen from Wrath, and then the spell suppress affected by Grace. Now you don't need the spell suppress on this one, and you can get like a cheaper one with just the damage pen for Wrath. But then you have to pick up the spell suppress node. I dropped one somewhere. I think it was actually the one on the. I think it was on the shield. So the idea for the shield was to roll the avoid alien elements and spell suppress. Because I got the Watcher's Eye Jewel, I was able to ignore the spell suppress on the shield, which made the shield way easier to craft. So now I guess I should go into the crafting a little bit here. For the claw, we'll start with the claws, the biggest one, it's better. Fracture base, always. Even if you're doing like a budget tier claw, you can get like a T1 fracture tax fee. I think I paid 60, 80 chaos, and that was way forever ago. I think it was a couple weeks into the league. I did not do this build as my league start. I did another one and then switched to it. I should have done this one because I didn't have a great time with the other one in the league mechanic. But getting a high, you don't need a 27 perfect, but a T1, 20, 26, 27, 25, 27, anywhere around there attack speed, it's not very expensive. You basically roll it with essences. Personally, I wanted to make sure that I got a big lightning damage roll because most of your damage is lightning, so I used lightning essences. Now, a better play may have been to use cold essences and then try to go for the lightning roll, because a T1 LE roll is going to be higher than you can get with essences, which for in general, most essences roll T0. Well, for the flat added damage, they don't. They roll like a mix between like T2 and T1, like halfway in between. So the best play, which is what I did with this claw, was to roll the cold damage with essences and try to get a T1 lightning damage roll. Anyway, this is the more budget-friendly one anyway. You basically roll with as you can get whatever LEs you want anyway. Cold lightning is what I went with because I prefer cold and lightning. Cold you want because it freezes and chills, which is the most important. And lightning is going to be your biggest DPS. Fire damage, I never cared much about. I do get some from anger and a couple other things. Ignite does not really do a whole lot with this build because we're not spec'd into any ignite damage or anything like that, or burning damage. So you basically get 3 mods. After you get the fracture attack speed, you get the lightning damage, cold damage, or whatever else you're going for, then you have to throw an Ashling on it. You can either buy one from TFT or whatever you want to do. It has been announced or leaked a little bit in one of the Neon interviews that there are going to be multiple things next League that are going to be itemized in the game. I'm hoping Ashlings and Verici benches and stuff like that is going to be what they're talking about. But either way, you get an Ashling and you add it on here. Now you can get a prefix or a suffix. If you get a prefix, which is actually what I preferred and what I wanted, you would try to go for the attacks with this weapon penetrate LE resistances, and it rolls 14 to 16%. That's what this one is. So this one's 16%, where this we just crafted on 13. So it's a little bit better. The problem is if you don't get it, now this part is very important when you're crafting this, so pay attention. When you're crafting it, when you go to unveil it, if you don't get the attacks penetrate, why is my phone going off? You have to. It doesn't brick the claw necessarily, but when you go to unveil it, you have to pick a mod. I can't put it in there because it's corrupted and already unveiled. But you pick a mod that is not an attack mod. So if I go to unveil this and it's a prefix and I get weapon penetrate, blah 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 blah, whatever, you pick a stupid shitty mod like mana or something like that, because your attack speed, your cold damage, your lightning damage, they're all attack mods. So instead of bricking the claw and having to start over with rolling the essences, you can just do cannot roll attack mods, and then you annul off, and it's always going to annul off the mod that you unveiled as long as it's not an attack mod. So just remember that. It can save you a bunch of time and a bunch of money. Now, if you get a suffix, which is what I got on this one, you want to go for the crit chance and the strength int. I already talked about how strength and int starved you are. Getting a big crit strike chance / strength int is super helpful for this. So basically, if you get a prefix, you go for penetrate LE res. If you get a suffix, you go for the crit strength int mod, and then you just craft the opposite one on. When that was done, it was 5 mods. There was a 6 mod. I just exalt slammed it, and on this one I got lightning res, which is kind of a waste, but at least res is res, right? Like, it helped a little bit. On the bigger claw, you start with the crit multi fracture. You roll. Now this one I also went for T2. I want to say that real quick. So I rolled essences, and then when I was going for the lightning damage or the cold or whatever the other random mod hit was, you go for T2 or T1. This one I wanted T1 specifically. So the budget one, you can definitely get like a T2 LE roll. This one I wanted T1. So I spammed this one with cold essences, and I wanted a T1 lightning. That was the only thing I wanted on this claw, T1 lightning. If there's other mods like filled up, you do have to annul and hope that you get. You have to have a spare suffix and a spare prefix. So you can put on prefixes cannot be changed. And then you go to the Ashling, which I did forget to mention you have to do for this one too. When you put the Ashling on, the Ashling removes a prefix mod. So before you Ashling, you have to do prefixes cannot be changed, so it doesn't kill one of your like cold or lightning damage. And then when you do the Ashling, it'll remove the the prefixes, that will be the mod that it picks, and then give you the Ashling. You don't want to break your claw by having it remove one of the LE damages. I'll try to add this to the actual written guide later too, so you guys can see it out. Anyway, so for this one, you roll the essences, you get the 2 LE damages, you have the crit strike multiplier, you do... Before I did my Ashling, I wanted to get my attack speed. So for attack speed, you lock out the same thing. You do prefixes cannot be changed, and then you come over here and you harvest craft, augment. I don't know why it didn't pull up. I still don't know why it didn't pull up. Oh, it's add speed. So it costs a lot of juice, but the only attack speed modifier that you can get, this claw, not that one. The only attack speed modifier you can get is flat attack speed. There's no other speed modifiers at all. So you're 100% guaranteed to get speed. The problem is there's 7 tiers, I think, and you obviously, for the ultimate in-game claw, you only want T1. So basically, once prefixes are locked, you throw the claw in here, and you add a new speed, remove another random modifier. The only random modifier it can remove is the prefixes cannot be changed. So basically, each time you do this, you're hoping for T1 attack speed. If you don't get T1 attack speed, I'm showing the wrong claw. I'm getting all confused here. This is the claw. If you don't get T1 attack speed, then you do the same thing. You just have to switch it after that to prefixes cannot be changed. Then you have to scour it to get rid of the attack speed mod, basically. And then you have to redo it again and do prefixes cannot be changed, and then do it in here. I think it took me 5 tries, and I got T1 attack speed. It's equal weighting, and it's basically 1 out of 7, so if you're lucky, it might only take 2-3 tries. If you're not lucky, it will take much more. The kitty's meowing at me over here. Why are you talking to yourself? And then you'll have your attack speed, you'll have your LE damages, you'll have the crit strike multiplier. Then you do the Ashling, same thing with doing prefixes cannot be changed. And go for attacks. Attacks with this weapon penetrate. If you don't do that, you have to start over again with the Ashling. So you can get a suffix or a prefix with the Ashling still. So, and the Ashling you can kind of go about again too. And so if you get like a suffix, you can just do the same thing. Prefixes can't be changed, and then try to get rid of it. I'll put this in the guide. It's definitely easier than seeing it straight out. I'll also link a couple useful videos. But that's basically it for the claw. And again, this is the much easier budget version, which works perfectly fine. This was just the ultimate end. I never had a super sick, 200 div craft or something, so I wanted to do it myself, and basically that's what you got. I actually think on this, now that I want to say, just to make sure I don't lead people down the wrong way, I think I Ashlinged first. Because if you do the attack speed harvest stuff first, and you get attack speed, and you have that on there, and then you Ashling, you can remove the attack speed roll, and that's gonna suck. So I actually think I did the Ashling first. So yes, ignore everything I just told you in the last 2 minutes. Lightning roll, cold roll, the fracture roll. Then you want to do your Ashling and go for same thing, if it's same as the budget claw. So if you get a suffix, which I wanted a prefix, then you just do prefixes cannot be changed, scour it, and re-Ashling until you get a prefix. When you get the prefix and you get what you want, you put it on there. Then you do the harvest craft for the attack speed, and that will give you your 5 mods, and then you just craft on the crit strike chance, strength, and int. And that's how to make the end-to-end game version, which again I will put in the guide. The shield was even easier. You only needed to avoid LE elements, and basically life. So I took the biggest essence you could craft for life, just because there was nothing else, which was Deafening Greed, and then I just spammed some of them on until I got a 30% roll or higher on avoid LE elements, or whatever you need to cap your, it's actually like 27, 28%, something like that. But the higher you get the roll on the shield, the lower you need the implicit roll on your boots. which helps if you're spamming a bunch of Ickers on it. Super easy. I did an Ashling. I was hoping for a suffix for 7% chance to deal double damage. I didn't get it. I got a prefix, but the prefix gave me more added flat cold, more added flat lightning. You can get cold and fire. You can get lightning fire. You can get whatever element damage types that you want. And then that's pretty much it. And then I threw a couple exalts on it, and I got the evasion life hybrid mod, which was pretty cool, and then I got regenerate 1.8 life, which was pretty much worthless. But the shield was incredibly easy to craft as well, and that was pretty much it for the gear and the skills and the crafting. So the build is great, guys. Honestly, like, you'll have to try it yourself to see. No mana cost, ripping through maps, no issues. It's pretty defensive. I mean, you can see I have a 74, although with frenzy charges and stuff, I think it goes up to like 77% evasion. You can push that higher too if you want. You have max to all your resistances. You have max spell suppress, and between that and the life gain on hit and everything else is not really a problem. It's great for bossing. It's fun to play. It's great for mapping. It can do all map mods, like it's an absolute great build to play. If you guys have questions, anything like that, again, feel free to stop by the stream. Feel free to post up in the guide on the forums. I always read them every day, and I'll answer any questions you have. So I hope you guys have a good time, and hope you enjoy the build as much as I did.